From August 22nd to 24th, I'll be running a massive LitRPG sale. That sale will include at least 200 free ebooks, all within the LitRPG and progression fantasy genre. I'd like to thank everyone for checking out the site, checking out the sale, sharing it where you can, and an especially big thank you to all the authors and publishers who have given me their blessing to host this site. I really do appreciate it. Come grab some free books. Awesome. So thank you again. I really do appreciate it. Just to start us off, can you give me like a little bit of an introduction about you, who you are, and then sort of tell me about your books as well, please?
Hi, my name is Lucas Flint, and I write uh, primarily superheroes and also some lit RPG. I've been moving more into lit RPG. My biggest superhero series is probably the Superhero Sun, and then my biggest lit RPG series I currently published is Capes Online, which is a superhero lit RPG. So, been at this for a while. So I got lots of books, but those are my two biggest series, probably ones I'm most well known for.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And that's exactly it. I was looking at sort of your stuff beforehand, and you do have a lot of books. So how long have you been writing for?
Um, I've been publishing my first superhero book came out back in 2016, but I was publishing professionally since 2014. But that was like when my first series that took off and really helped me make it as a writer, like as a full-time writer. And before that, I was writing fan fiction. It was a sort of hobby slash training for becoming a writer. So I've just been writing in some form or fashion since I was 12. So.
That's amazing. That's
Mhm.
fantastic. Honestly, until like so to be a full-time writer is absolutely amazing. So how many books do you generally sort of like put out a year to sort of yeah, how
Mhm.
prolific are you right now
Uh,
compared to maybe like in the past? Yeah.
Yeah, I was a lot more prolific, almost a decade ago. I think one year I did definitely have done 12 novels in a year because I was doing a book a month
Wow.
for a while there. But I've slowed down quite a bit to the point where I'm doing like maybe 4 to 6 books a year. And part of that's due to burnout, part of it's due to health issues. I had some hand pain for a while, which just
Hmm.
recently I've been able to get that taken care of. So, but
That's great. Congrats.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no, it was really bad. It was really bad for a while there, but I'm glad because I went to physical therapy. I thought I would need like surgery, but turned out I just need to do some hand and wrist strengthening exercises, and that took care of it. So very
Yeah,
grateful for
no,
that.
especially as writers, but just people sit down all day. So even for my day job, I sit down all day. We don't recognize how important it is for us to just stretch, especially as we get older, because we don't stretch enough
Yes.
when we're younger, and then as we get older, it sort of really starts to kick us in the butt, right?
Yeah, that's what something I've been having to learn over the past couple of years is just taking better care of my body and health in general. Um, especially as I get older. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Back on the writing stuff. So, what does your schedule sort of look like for as a full time writer? So, are you writing one series right now? Do you sort of like set aside specific time during the day? Like, what does it sort of look like for you?
So yeah, I typically write from like between 8 8:30 and 10:30, sometimes 11 in the mornings. Um, and then in the afternoons I'll do, non-writing related tasks like editing or formatting books for publication or marketing, planning, just whatever needs to be done pretty much. And then sometimes I'll do some more work at night before bedtime. Because I'm married and we've got like a uh, daughter who's almost 2, so I end up and my wife also works from home, so like she'll watch our daughter during the morning and then in the afternoon, and if she has work that needs to be done, I'll typically watch our baby. So it's a little since becoming a parent, my schedule has changed a little bit,
Hmm.
but I actually think it's kind of helped me because I'm more efficient with my time, I think, than I was before becoming a parent. So, which I mean, it was definitely a big disruption at first, but I feel like, I've gotten into a good groove, and it's helped me to, prioritize time and energy and all that.
Oh, good on you, man. I'm still trying to learn that whole time prioritization thing. I'm on paternity leave right now
Oh,
because I just had
congrats.
my wife just had my second, well, not mine, our second baby, and then I also have a 2-year-old, or she's almost two.
Oh,
So I'm still getting used to the disruption that you were talking about.
yeah,
It
yeah,
definitely is tough. But
we're trying for another one too, so I'm sure I'll go through another disruption, but, it's just, I'm lucky that my wife also works from home and that she's very supportive of my writing career and that we work together very well, in general. I mean, we don't work in the same business or anything like that, but just, we make a good uh, team, so that helps.
yeah,
But yeah,
well,
it's definitely
absolutely.
tough.
It's like they say, the most important choice you can make in your life is your partner a lot of the times, right? So
Yeah, I
someone who's
mean,
supportive is
yeah.
really, really important. So back to your writing and stuff. So on the writing front, so you have done a great deal of superhero books. What made
Yep.
you sort of start transitioning over to the lit RPG side of things, and sort of do you flip back and forth, or do you focus more on the lit RPG side now, or sort of where's your head at?
Well, yeah, I have just recently started focusing more on lit RPG. Um, and by recently, I mean like this month, because I just finished up. Because I also do some ghostwriting for some other people. I just finished up a ghostwriting project and decided to go ahead and get seriously started on my non-superhero RPG series, the Codex Wars, that I'm hoping to launch sometime, either end of this year or early next year. Um, so I've been doing, and the main reason I'm doing the transition is, I mean, I do like lit RPG a lot, like, and I like superheroes, but like, and there's definitely some crossover there between them, but at the same time, it's about trying to like stretch myself creatively to, when you're doing superheroes one genre for like 10 years, it's nice to be able to do something, you do want to do something different as a writer to try to grow. And also, I'm hoping this will expand my audience too into the wider lit RPG sphere, because like superheroes are pretty niche, like even more niche than lit RPG. And while I've had some, success with my superhero lit RPG stuff, I know that stuff my superhero lit RPG does not do nearly as well as like the more traditional fantasy, type lit RPGs that you see in the market. So it's mostly, like I said, a way to stretch myself creatively and to see if I can do it, and also to, try to expand my career into a somewhat bigger genre and, get a new audience that way. So
Yeah. So I find it, so a couple of things you said find really interesting. So the idea that superheroes themselves are more niche than RPGs. So I would think that because superheroes have been around since like the 30s, 40s on the comic side, that there's sort of like more familiarity of people on that. But do you think that everyone's so focused on TV shows or movies or comics that they don't really view the novel form of it as sort of like their form of entertainment that they want? So do you think you're sort of competing with comics and graphic novels on the superhero side?
Um, kinda. It's hard because, superheroes in general are very much dominated by, Marvel and DC, and there's some,
Mhm.
fairly there's some bigger indie hits recently, like The Boys and Invincible and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
for the most part, you know, at least, Western superheroes are very dominated um by Marvel and DC. So I've been fortunate to do decently with my, independent superhero stuff. And I've known some other authors who also have done well, but I think that maybe at the moment the tastes in superheroes have been going down. Like, you've heard of superhero fatigue with like the Marvel movies, and there may be some truth to that. Sometimes it's about quality, but I do think, because I've noticed myself that my best years were when the MCU, for example, that was at its height.
Mhm.
And then I've noticed that, with that kind of struggling a little bit in my own works, and some other superhero authors I know have also been dealing with that. So I'm not necessarily going to. I think I will return to superheroes at some point, but for the time being, I think I'm just going to try to move over to lit RPG. But yeah, I do think also, like you said, there's a lot more visual media, like movies and comics and video games, or superheroes, I think, because superheroes are pretty visual in general,
Hmm.
thanks to their origin in comics. So it's harder to, I think, do that with non-visual, prose fiction. Not impossible, but it is a bit more of a challenge.
Sure.
So,
And then sort of with that, so how has it been to transition that type of writing over to LitRPG? So like you mentioned that your Superheroes Online was sort of one of the major LitRPGs that you sort of people might know you for. So do you have sort of like, is it the integration where one person has a system, or does everyone have a system, or like how do
well,
you integrate those two things together?
my Capes Online series, it was just one of those. It was back when the VR RPG stuff was
Mhm.
more popular. So it's a video game, more actual virtual reality video game where people go into the game and can choose their character and their alignment and costume. They can earn powers and level up and go on missions and team up with other players or fight other players. So which that's not really super popular in the RPG at the moment. But but it was. I remember when I was writing it, it was kind of challenging at first, just because you also have to keep track of like the stats and equipment and all that. But it was also
Mhm.
pretty fun. I feel like the system I ended up creating was like, I know I got a lot of compliments from people on who read it, that it was like simple but easy to follow, but not too like simple. Like, so I was pretty um happy about that. But
Yeah.
that's also kind of why I went back to normal superheroes for a while, just because with LitRPG, it can be hard to keep track of like all the stats and growth and stuff. And I also feel like looking back at my previous LitRPG series, I never really got the progression element I didn't really nail it as well as other books I've been reading in the genre since then. So, but I still think it was a good series. I had fun writing it, and like I said, it's my second best series behind my uh, main superhero series. So people seem to like it, and I might do a RPG superhero RPG, except like set in maybe a more real world with a system, like you were saying. But for the moment, I'm just, like I said, sort of moving on to the normal RPG.
Sure. Let's talk on that one then. So, like, what got you interested? Well, obviously, you've been doing later RPG beforehand, but so what have got you interested in like doing that specific genre? And then, do you mind just saying the name of the book again, and then sort of just like talking on sort of what it's going to be about, and when you anticipate sort of putting that out to the world?
Yeah, so my new series called the Codex Wars, and I'm hoping it'll come out sometime, like I said, late 2025 or early 2026. I'm working on the first book now.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So, it's basically like Cradle meets Arcane Ascension with a little bit of Awaken Online thrown in, because it's about this teenage farm boy who goes on missions for the sentient magical library, with a mission to end the Codex Wars, which is this shadow conflict around the magical system that governs basically the whole world. Before that, those Codex Wars end up destroying it. He's given a unique discipline or class that he can use to write and like edit spells and make new spells, to help him on his quests and stuff. So,
No, that's great. There's definitely there's been a few stories, but not many that I know of like that. I know that there is one called Library Reset by KT
mhm,
Hanna that I read, which is a pretty good book, and it has a similar library-esque premise to it.
mhm,
And I know that that series is done pretty well. So seeing more within that genre would be really, really great.
mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then
So,
do you how is it when you're writing one series over the other? And it sounds as though you have to like juggle lots of different types of storylines, not just in your head, but maybe you have documentation to do so as well. And you mentioned beforehand that you also do ghostwriting as well. So
mhm.
I'd be interested, first off, are there any ghostwriters? Sorry, is that within the lit RPG? You don't have to say the names, but I'm curious if
Yeah.
that's some lit
I
RPG
mean,
stuff.
I've ghostwritten a progression fantasy series, which I can't tell you the name of the author or
Oh
anything
no,
like
please
that,
don't.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I just cannot. But yes, I mean, that's actually one of the nice things I like about ghostwriting is that it lets me write in genres that, I wasn't normally writing in, give me a chance to practice new skills and stuff. So,
Yeah.
um,
Very, very cool.
mhm,
So yeah,
yeah.
so back to the other piece of it then. So as you have these so many different series and so many different ideas that are sort of like in your head, how is it juggling all those different types of like themes and series and storylines?
Oh, well, that's a good question. Because it has been a lot, like, especially since I'm more of a discovery writer than an outliner. Although for Codex Wars, I've done a lot more pre-planning than I usually do, um, because I want to have like a system that is internally consistent and makes sense, but also has a good sense of progression. So that way you're not going too fast or going too slow. And I want to do a lot of world building, coming up with ideas. That way, I would have at least some general direction I was going in, even though I'm still pantsing a lot of the finer details and stuff. But yeah, I do have documents that I use to. Like, I got a big world building document that's over like 200 pages at this point, which
Wow.
yeah, even though I've not written that much of the fiction, but like there's just a lot in this series. I got some spreadsheets to keep track of like the main character's progression and um, some stuff like that. So a bunch of templates for items and characters and stuff that I can fill it out in the story. That way if I need to make something, if I introduce something in a story, that I didn't pre-plan, I can just fill out the template and that's good to go. It looks consistent with the rest of the series. So um, so yeah, but in terms of like balancing different projects, typically I would do like one ghostwriting project, then one me project, then one ghostwriting, one me. I just sort of bounce around. Originally, before I was doing ghostwriting, I just pick one series and just write that one, and then until I finished it. But since ghostwriting, I found that bouncing between them seems to be the best way to do it.
Hmm.
Um, for a while there, I was doing like trying writing two different projects a day. Or I should write three books at once at one point, but that
Wow.
does not work for me. I do better when I can just focus on one thing at a time and just give it my best and my all, and then move on to the next thing when I'm done with that.
Yeah. So how is it that and we'll get onto other stuff afterwards, but honestly, I haven't talked to anybody as yet who has done ghostwriting. So again, don't talk about the actual project, but how do you find that sort of like piece of it? Do you feel as though you're sort of giving away a piece of yourself as you sort of write for others, or is it stuff where they give you a lot of the framework so you don't feel as though it's your own ideas, or how does
Yeah,
that
well,
sort of like play into how you
like
write it? Yeah.
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it depends on the project. I've had some clients where they had a really detailed idea of what they wanted, and other ones are like, here's just the idea, go crazy with it. Which is always my preferred, but I can work with people who are have more detailed plans too. And I guess I don't really feel like it's not been an issue for me, just because like I understand that's the trade-off with ghostwriting is that you get paid up front, but however much money you've agreed to, and it might be a lot of money, but it's also the only money you'll see from it. So,
Mhm.
like, if any books I've ghostwritten take off and they make movies off it and stuff, I'm not gonna see any money off that, which is fine. Like, I did the ghostwriting just because I wanted have that more steady income in comparison
Yeah.
to my own, just have another stream of income. Um, so I've always looked at that as like for work kind of day job type writing versus my own stuff, which is also, bringing in money, but, just a different, but it's more me and
Hmm.
more, comes from my own imagination, my own, creativity, and I own all the rights to as well. So,
I think it's fantastic. I think it's cool to sort of like have both sides, and I think it's fantastic that you don't let that sort of get to your head, because I think that's great. Like
Mhm.
you said, it's
Yeah.
creating a hopefully steady but like alternate form of income that sort of makes
Mhm.
sure that you sort of can keep up with your full-time author career, which is great, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So on the oh sorry.
Oh, what?
No, no. So on the your side then, so you
Mhm.
have published all these books, and then I'm guessing most of them are self-published, and I saw that some are published as well. Do you sort of
Mhm.
like pick and choose which ones you'd like to be published, or do you submit all of them to a publisher, or like how do you generally go about that like publishing choice?
Mhm.
And are you
Yeah.
happy with the publishing choice when you do go with one versus the other?
Yeah. I'm pretty much like 99% self-published. I only have one series with Aethon. I did that because because I already kind of knew the Aethon guys from some group promos who did the superhero stuff. Since Aethon also publishes superhero, and I always thought, you know, I saw Aethon books were doing really well on Amazon. I was like, well, might as well see what they can do for me, and so pitched them my idea, and they liked it, and went ahead and wrote it, and um, so yeah, I mean, it was a good experience. Like Aethon, can't speak for other publishers, but Aethon is a pretty good publisher to work with. They're very fair in their dealings and offer decent you know uh, contracts and stuff. Like it's nice that they handle things like getting the audiobook version because audiobooks are expensive to make and at least yeah, and so it's nice to have someone else be able to handle that for me, especially since I know that in LitRPG audiobooks are like huge. So
Hmm.
um but on the flip side, when you go with a publisher, like even a fair publisher like Aethon, like their contracts, they're very fair about the rights they take and what they, taking only what they need and not, trying to take all your rights the way some of the really big publishers try to. But even working with Aethon, there's still some limitations about what I can do with those books, at least with that series.
Hmm.
So, and it's just, but with like my self-published books, there's a lot more flexibility, and I can take them in and out of KU. I can, you know, bundle them together as I see fit, run price promos, so it's really
Hmm.
um so just lots of pros and cons, and it's good to go with, I also went with Aethon just to have like another income stream. That's very important when you're a full-time writer is trying to develop as many income streams as you can.
Yeah.
um so and Aethon is just another way to do it. So um I'm planning to self-publish my Codex Wars series. I mean, I guess if Aethon or some other publisher wants, like, I very well might shop it around, maybe, depending on how or if it does well in Royal Road and people start offering me contracts, or I might be interested. But at the moment, I do think I like self-publishing a little bit better, just because I have all that, like I said, the freedom and flexibility, which I really value, and I do also value having like as many control over my rights, as many of my rights as possible,
Hmm.
um, just for long-term
Yeah.
stability. But so
No, I can totally understand. And I noticed that several of your books were also like published in, I think it was German. It looked
uh
like. So how did
yeah.
how did that process sort of go about? Because that's something
Oh,
actually I've thought of doing. I
mhm,
recognize that it seems like a difficult process. So I'm
mhm.
curious how you sort of gone and
Yeah.
navigated that route.
So that was actually me because I was using some AI translations. So, which
Sure.
I don't know how you feel about AI or not, but um, it's just because I've been seeing other author friends I know who had getting into other languages, and I've always wanted to, and then I had this opportunity to use this AI translation service that wasn't priced too badly, and I figured why not, and it's been since I do have the rights and all that. So um, I don't know if I'll be doing more of those because I have not actually I made back my investment in that just yet. Of course, there's still time for those to earn out, but it was a good experiment. I think I would prefer if, like, a foreign publisher or whatever were to do my do my translations for me. I do think that probably they would do better that way, but like there's just sort of an experiment just to see what would happen.
Sure. No, that's really interesting, and I've seen those things. I personally didn't. Nothing against anybody else. I don't like AI for that side of stuff as much. But I honestly I see the different ways that it can be used, and that's one really really good way for it can be used. So that's really cool that you've gone down that path. And again, it's like you said, trying to find different income streams, and you're trying to remain, yeah, the full time author. As it relates to sort of maybe not that specifically, but going on another sort of like tangent as it relates to all your different books, several of your series have some fantastic artwork as well. So do you generally go to the same artists for all of your stuff, or do you generally use different types of artists, or some of them AI potentially as well? Like, how is it that you generally go about finding that art? Because I think some of it really is great.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I do frequently get a lot of compliments on my covers. So for a while there, I was working with Damonza, which is this book cover company based out of New Zealand. They're pretty
Okay.
pricey, but they also are very high quality and generally pretty great to work with. But then I switched over to Miblart back in 2020 because they're a little cheaper, but their art's also good. Like they're based out of Ukraine. They're not quite as good as Monza, but they're still pretty good. And they have done. I think they've done some LitRPG stuff. Like, I think they did one of Dakota
Yeah.
Kraut books, if I remember correctly. So that was another reason I was interested, since they seem to be in that same field. And I have done some AI art for my most recent series, but that's because I was just having some troubles getting the cover in time for those books to come out. So, so if they look a little, if that series looks a little off, that's why. But so I've just kind of, and before the Monza and stuff, I've worked with freelance designers on some other books. So I do prefer, like, when I hire out to work with a company like Demonza or Miblart, just because they're um I don't have to like wrangle an artist. You know, I mean, they have their
Sure.
own artists who they work with, and I don't know what, you know, what that's like for them. But I know for me, it's just nice to be able to submit that order and tell them what they want, and, you know, give them my feedback on the sketches, and then just go back and
Yeah.
forth until I'm happy with it. So.
No, that makes complete sense. So as it relates to, you know what? Actually, let's pause there. What I'm going to do is actually say, did you have any stories? Because I always want to sort of shout out stories within the genre. So I'm going to focus on the
Mhm.
lit RPG progression fantasy if possible. But actually, because you're also in the superhero lens, so if there are any on the superhero side that you think that people should be checking out for those who are listening to this, are there any stories you'd like to call out? Ones that you've enjoyed, ones that you think that people maybe aren't looking at as much, or just ones that you've enjoyed? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I guess in terms of superhero stuff, um, there's Kevin Hardman's Kid Sensation series that came out a while ago. That was pretty good. I don't know if it's still ongoing or completed or not, but I enjoyed that one. Um, and in terms of, I guess, lit RPG and progression fantasy, my two favorite series, which are, they're both are decently popular, would have to be like Cradle and Arcane Ascension, or sufficiently advanced magic.
Mhm.
Just because those two, I feel like with Cradle, I like the, you know, how it's like a complete series that's really structured well, a good sense of progression with the main characters, and tells a good story. And with Arcane Ascension, I just kind of like the intrigue and the system that the author created. So those are, which I guess I know they're not exactly like obscure series, but
No, that's
they're
great.
ones you like.
No, that's totally okay, honestly. And those, like you said, two very popular series, and those two are the ones who actually coined the term progression fantasy. So I think it's really cool that they are still so prolific. And I know that right now, Will White's book is actually in the sale, which I thought was really really cool. I was able to talk
Mm-hmm.
with his brother and get him to to discount the books and have it part of the sale, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Andrew said no this time, but maybe next year. Maybe I'll get
Mhm.
Andrew Rose books in it next year. So no,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So as it relates to do you just on that a little bit? Do you find that as you're focusing more on the Codex Wars and sort of as you look more into the genre, are you sort of finding yourself gravitating more towards the progression fantasy side of things as opposed to like the harder lit RPG side of things? Or do you find that you still jump back and forth when you read sometimes, or is it primarily on the progression fantasy side?
I think I do like the progression fantasy side a little bit more, but I've also been reading, just reading as widely in the genre as I can in preparation for the Codex Wars. So, like, I'm currently reading through Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is very different from, you
Yeah,
know, those other series and my own series. But, I also recognize it's very big in the genre. And it's a good series, too. Like, it's not my personal favorite, but, I know a lot of people love it. And it's been, you know, so I figure I might as well just read it. I think I'm on the fifth book at the moment. So I was hoping to get the whole series read before LitRPG Con this weekend, but I don't think I'm gonna do that. But
oh, so
um,
are you going? Is this your first convention? So I don't know when this will go out. So it'll probably go out
okay,
after RPG Con and stuff. But we
mm,
can still talk about it broadly. So I'm not going
mm,
personally. But are
yeah,
you going? Is it your first con? Is it your first time going as an author? How does that process generally work for you?
yeah. I mean, it's not my first con, but it's my um, I'm going as an attendee. I'm not like a panelist or anything like that.
Sure.
I mean, Athon will be there, and they'll be selling some of my Villaintown books at the vendor hall table. So, and I'm sure I'll sign those or whatever they want me to do. But I'm mostly going as a attendee this year. Who knows about future years, depending on how this goes. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. Um, because there's going to be lots of people and lots of events. There's going to be some gaming and because not just like it's interesting because like it's got like both panels and workshops, but also like gaming sessions and stuff, which I haven't really seen too much at other cons before. So I think it'll be interesting to see how how they balance that out. So
Yeah. No, I honestly I think it's great that it's happening, and I know there have been ones that have been online beforehand, but it's awesome that Legion and Geneva have been able to put together something that is in person, so large and fantastic, and like you, like if the stars align, I hope to go next year as well. I just like I said, I just had a baby, so for me the
yeah,
stars
yeah,
did
no,
not
I completely.
align.
I mean, yeah.
So before we sort of get closer to finalizing, can you one more time plug your books, plug where people can find you, and then also let us know like which book or books are you anticipating being on sale for the massive lit RPG sale that's sort of about to happen as well. So just give one last plug and then also say which books are going to be on sale.
All right, yeah, my books, you know, my Lucas Flint books you can find on my website www.lucasflint.com. They're also on Amazon. And specifically, if you're looking for Lit RPG, I have Capes Online, VR Hero, and Villaintown. Those are the ones that are currently out, and then I have the Codex Wars coming out at some point later. And the book in the sale, I think, is the first VR Hero book, Reset, which is follows this superhero rock star who ends up getting reset basically back to level one after surviving an assassination attempt and has to rebuild his streaming career and his character while dealing with corporate conspiracies and all that fun stuff. So,
Cool, very very cool. Well, honestly, thank you so much. I wanted the amount of books you've written is fantastic, and that's really cool. I'll look out and we'll look out for your Codex Wars series. Are there any last words you want to say so people can find you on your website? As it currently stands, are you? No, you know what? That's fine. Thank you so much. Honestly, I think that's fantastic. Okay, so I'll stop the recording. Thank you very much.
yes, thank you.
From August 22nd to 24th, I'll be running a massive lit RPG sale. That sale will include at least 200 free ebooks, all within the lit RPG and progression fantasy genre. I'd like to thank everyone for checking out the site, checking out the sale, sharing it where you can, and an especially big thank you to all the authors and publishers who have given me their blessing to host this site. I really do appreciate it. Come grab some free books.